This world really is something, isn't it? Whiling away its hours amidst a sea of city lights, it's truly breathtaking, don't you think? Knowing that it will all come crashing down makes everything the more mournful, and therein lies the true beauty. Soul Hackers 2 was released 25 years after the original Devil Summoner Soul Hackers on the Sega Saturn, a game about the implications of the internet. Much changed both in the world and in the Megami Tensei series in this time, and so, 25 years later, in 2022, Soul Hackers 2 has different things to say. Nevertheless, the ideas about technology are still there, and now, with the changing times, this game released amidst the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence. The game might not have the same 90s cyberpunk aesthetic as its predecessor, it may have drastically different gameplay, and it may tell its story in a different way, but the game still has some similar ideas and goals at its core. Soul Hackers 2 tries earnestly, and succeeds, to say something hopeful, with characters so meaningfully written, one of the most fine-tuned spins on the press tone system, and a beautiful world. Soul Hackers 2 is a masterpiece. The story is incited by the actions of a network of information known as Aion. Aion was born from technology and the information of humans, and remains a passive observer of humanity until it senses danger to the human race and intervenes. The story is set a few decades into the future in the canon of the Devil Summoner series, in a world where devil summoners with spiritual powers summon demons using comps unbeknownst to the general public. Society has become somewhat of a technocracy, and plagued with economic stagnation. Aion exists to preserve humanity as a benevolent force, though Ishida, co-director of the game, stated in an interview that the game was originally going to be set in a dystopia controlled by a network, before the story was changed to be designed around Aion. Nevertheless, a key part of the game's story is a construct known as the Omni system, which is able to transfer information across distances instantaneously, which is shown to have potentially drastic consequences on the game's world. For the sake of its mission, Aion creates 3 beings who have their own individual identities separate from Aion, 2 of which have physical bodies. Enter Ringo. The protagonist of the game herself is a being born from technology. According to Ishida, Ringo is originally not going to be the main character, which is fairly obvious from the amount of attention that a different character gets in the story. Ringo would have been more like Nemissa from the previous game. Soul Hackers 2, unlike the vast majority of other Mega 10 games, does not have a silent protagonist. Ringo's role is to save humanity from an oncoming calamity caused by the gathering of spiritual objects known as covenants, by a group that wants to bring about the end of the world. Given that Ringo is a technological being, one might imagine that, in a game like this, she would be antagonistic, but here that's not the case. Ishida states that a world where people and technology coexist is more modern, with Miyauchi, the scenario writer, noting the growing belief that technology will reach a point where it can feel human-like sensations, rather than turning against us. This may suggest that Soul Hackers 2 is presenting a more nuanced view of technology, instead of specifically taking one side only. Either way, Ringo, newly born with a human body, investigates the human world, finding the person she was meant to save, Arrow, dead. Her response is to soul hack him and bring him back to life, and from delving into his soul emerges one of the primary themes of the game: understanding other people. In order to rearrange Arrow's soul, Ringo has to understand it, and so, within his soul, she sees memories that are important to him, and unresolved conflicts within his mind. Through his will to live, he becomes alive again, and the two team up with the common goal of preventing the Covenants from reaching their own hands. This brings us to the combat of Soul Hackers 2, which, on very hard difficulty, is some of the best in the entire Megami Tensei series. The player controls the same 4 devil summoners throughout the game as their party members, however, their skills and resistances are determined by a demon that they each equip. This makes the party highly customizable, as any party member can make essentially any build. However, different party members gravitate towards different roles and different demons, due to things like stats, and the fact that they each get passive summoner skills. The player is presented with an open system, though one that each party member interacts with in a different way, which is a great way to give the player strategic freedom, whilst also making each party member distinguished. This game's spin on the press-stun system is the Sabbath, a mechanic which seems simple on the surface, but goes much deeper than one might initially expect. The basic premise is that hitting an enemy weakness adds a demon to the stack, and at the end of the party's turn, the demons all attack in a Sabbath that deals AoE damage based on the stack count. It's the nuances of this mechanic that give it so much strategic depth. If you judge that your damage is high enough, it may be optimal to spread your damage across multiple enemies, instead of taking them out one by one like you might in a different turn-based game, so that the Sabbath can finish them all off. However, the Sabbath also does more damage the less enemies there are, meaning that it can be very helpful to prioritize taking out weakened ones before the Sabbath hits to maximize damage. It all depends on the situation, and strategy springs from these judgments that the player has to make in every battle. As the weakness is struck, Purple mist engulfs the battlefield, and a black silhouette of a demon with red eyes floats in the background. Sabbats have a wonderful aesthetic to them that utilizes the vibe of demons in a way that SMT games don't do enough. They also have an auditory aspect to the aesthetic. By turning off the music in the game, we can more easily hear the eerie giggle of demons in the background. As the stack gets higher, the entire arena transforms, caught in a sea of green, black, and red, an intense whirlwind of demonic essence, creating a fantastic and evocative visual effect. During the Sabbath, Ringo uses a summoning circle and calls upon what can potentially be up to 16 demons to charge at the enemy at once, finally ending in an explosion of color. It's a visual feast, and Ringo has great voice lines for it too.
You must be hungry. Come, let's start servants. In the name of Aion.
The demonic aesthetic even comes out in the achievement names for hitting high stacks, such as Walpurgisnacht and Witch Queen of Demons. The music for normal battles, however, is something that I would describe as inoffensive. I tune it out when I'm in combat. Other than that, the aesthetics of battle are great. A difference in Soul Hackers 2's version of press turns is that crits don't grant stacks. The boundary between physical and magical attacks has been blurred, and this is a choice made very deliberately. Physical skills are usually supposed to have more of a general application in modern Mega 10. They almost never hit weaknesses, but they can crit, meaning they have a chance to be effective against any enemy. This isn't how Soul Hackers 2 plays. It's about covering your bases and responding to the enemy, so having something generally useful for all situations doesn't fit the game. Enemies often do have physical or gun weaknesses in Soul Hackers 2, and crits won't grant stacks until late game, crits also being something that magic gains the ability to land. This point of balance for the game keeps it focused on its intended goal. With the rule of 1 demon per weakness hit, it would seem that the maximum stack would be 4, but the game implements many methods by which the player can increase it higher, to the point where it's possible to get it up to 16. One such example of these methods would be the summoner skills that give each party member a bonus stack for hitting a specific weakness unique to them. The 4 summoners are distinguished by various passive bonuses they acquire. This includes each of them learning a unique skill that gives +1 stack when they hit a weakness of their preferred element, elect, ice, fire, and force respectively. This alters the way that the player interacts with the demon system, making demons with a given skill attribute gravitate more towards certain party members. Also, half of the team uses physical as the attribute of their normal attack, whilst the other 2 use gun, further making each party member have more unique strengths and weaknesses, and each party member gains a passive that gives them an extra stack using a skill that hits a weakness of the same attribute as their normal attack. These factors together create an interesting dynamic. Early on, it may be best to equip demons with gun skills to physical users and vice versa to spread your coverage as much as possible. However, when attaining the gun stack and physical stack skills, it may be better to switch those demons around to maximize stack gain per attack. These are more examples of interesting decisions that Soul Hackers 2 presents the player with, and engaging ways to build their party. Soul Hackers 2 also managed to make ailments and dark skills useful and unique, whilst also cutting down on skill attribute bloat with purpose by combining them into one thing. Ruin is the 5th element, which exists as a damage type like any other, but each ruin skill inflicts an ailment at the cost of ruin skills or doing weak damage. Ailments are made useful by the fact that they're a bonus on top of what you get for hitting a ruin weakness, though this game still suffers from having too many ailments, leading to me not knowing what any of them do or what they look like. Nevertheless, ruin being integrated as an attack type like this gives the player much more control over ailments. A weakness or nullification of ruin will regard all ailments. Soul Hackers 2 always revolves around Sabbaths and hitting weaknesses at the end of the day, more so than other games in the series. Weak points are prioritized due to the Sabbath dealing damage in and of itself. The result of this is that the player is forced to engage with the ruin and ailments if enemies are weak to it, even if the damage falls off late game. Finally for this section, Soul Hackers 2 is very hard difficulty. It's one of the best designed difficulty modes in the series. Not only is it on this mode that enemies are strong enough to force the player to engage deeply with the Sabbath mechanics, but also, this setting makes the unique change of preventing the use of items during combat. Items would allow the player to gain access to different elements on any party member that they wouldn't have otherwise, as well as healing and buffs that could erase the rolls that the different party members otherwise take during combat. By being unlike most other turn-based games, Soul Hackers 2 leaves the player to rely only on their demons, and it's via this method that very hard mode teaches the player to gain a deep understanding of how the game functions in order to overcome all enemies. Overall, Soul Hackers 2's combat is consistently exciting, fast-paced and smooth, a tactical experience that continues to challenge and to reward, though these are only the basic mechanics. This is only scratching the surface. There is yet more to be introduced. Moving through the East Shipping District, Ringo acts to defend a covenant from those who would use it to bring about the world's end. A woman named Milady, carrying one of the 5 covenants, has died, freeing it from her body and allowing it to be taken by the Phantom Society, who wish to use it to summon the Great One, allowing them to achieve their goal. Milady, once a member of the society herself, is acting in revenge against its leader, characterizing her as a hateful and vengeful person. Ringo soul hacks Milady and has more trouble reviving her. She lacks the same will to live that most other people have, further characterizing her as a hopeless character. We fight the first boss, and the Covenant is secured by Ringo's aion associate, Figue, allowing her to see the Covenants within other people. There's one more important Covenant holder whose survival is necessary to prevent the apocalypse, and that is Saizo. His partner, Ash, unwillingly leads him into a back alley, where he is killed by the main antagonist, Iron Mask, and his artificially created servant, Zenon. His Covenant is taken, but it's not too late for Ringo to save his life. Convinced to continue living much more easily than Milady, Saizo is the fourth party member, completing the playable cast in time for the second dungeon. Ringo has to enter Arrow's soul once again to resolve a conflict within it. To do this, the party travels to the Axis, home of Aion, and enters the Soul Matrix. This is a location where the player engages in optional dungeons related to the soul of each party member, though this first one is mandatory. This is a great place for the player to experiment with different demons and get a hang of the combat system in a straightforward mini-dungeon. The starting demon of each party member represents their role in battle. For example, Milady's on Meraki, having offensive magic as well as having access to their preferred element. The exception to the latter is Saizo, whose Hair of Inaba starts with healing, but no elemental skill, and this is where the game cleverly encourages the player to engage with the demon switching system. The first demon in the game that the player can recruit, beside Ringo's starting pixie, is Dormarth, who comes with a Force skill. Switching Saizo's starting demon out for Dormarth will give the player access to the last element, resulting in them having access to every single offensive ability. This means that they will always have an opportunity to build the stack and get a Sabbath, which is what the combat system is all about. At this part of the game, Figue also creates a drone to aid in combat, utilizing the fact that she has a synthetic body to transfer her consciousness and remotely control other robots. The drone that she controls, an owl named Mimi, becomes an alter ego for her, allowing her to put a layer between herself and the others when she talks to them. This obscuring of her identity is a core part of her character which lurks in the background during the course of the game, until the effects on her psyche begin to show. Since we have the complete party of Soul Hackers 2, it's about time that I mentioned that this is one of the best main casts of characters in any game I've ever played. Something that immediately stands out with the main party is that they're funny. The game succeeds at making all of these characters likable with lines like this.
Bet you Ion folks think humans are pretty stupid for putting so much stock in luck.
Kind, yeah. But it's not like I don't understand. Not knowing the future makes you take any chance you get to affect the outcome.
Yeah, you do get it. You get in that mindset like, just a little more. Just one more shot. This might be the big one.
Sure, and wait, what are we talking about?
Huh? Gambling. Why do you ask?
Saizo is a cool guy. In a sense, he's the heart of the party, and often says and does whatever he wants. He's open about gambling, spending ludicrous amounts of money on unnecessary things, and his drinking habits. He's full of one-liners too, though all of his showiness may just be a mask for his underlying loneliness and inabilities to connect with people, despite acting like he's a friend to everyone. Similar to the approachability of Saizo is the game's actual main character, Ringo. The purpose of her very creation, specifically with the human body, was to connect with other humans, to investigate and save humanity. Whilst only having been born at the beginning of the game, and even having to adjust to the concept of an individual identity, she possesses very human-like qualities, for example, being witty like Saizo.
Wow, nothing gets past you, Saizo.
How do you think I've survived this long?
You didn't. You died. We all saw it.
I also think it's hilarious that Ringo, after being warned of the extreme dangers of soul hacking, has this dialogue option. Ringo's comp, Antikythera, is also the name of the ancient Greek, oldest known form of computer. This connects her to the theming of Aion, whose name is ancient Greek, similar to the classical language-derived name of Flamma, part of Aion with no body. Though the game's original protagonist was going to be none other than Arrow, the first person to be soul-hacked. Arrow is a member of a supranational organization called the Yatagarasu, who oppose groups like Phantom. They act for justice, which is exactly what is coded into Arrow's soul. Arrow has seen the horrors of the world that he was born into, all of its conflicts, and the demons inhabiting it. He fights to end that fighting, however long that may last, and whatever it may take. His outlook is heavily informed by his relationship with a man that he knew as a child, Kaburagi, who also recognizes the broken state of the world.
If you ask me, parents are worse than any ghost. Mine showed me what a messed up world this is.
Yeah, you said it. Teacher says the world is a beautiful place, but I don't know why. It seems awful to me.
Well, this is the only world we've got. No point wasting all our time moping about it, or turning into jerks.
It's clear how this last statement from Kaburagi has an impact on Arrow. Knowing that this is the only world he has causes him to fight hard to protect it. This is the opposite of how the Phantom Society acts, despairing at the state of the world and wanting to reset it. Though, Arrow and Kaburagi evolve in different ways, going down different paths and fighting for different justices. In a mainline SMT alignment sense, Arrow could possibly be the law representative, and it's clear from his conflict with one other party member that she would be the chaos counterpart. Milady is Soul Hackers 2's best character. She is someone dealing with a traumatic past and complicated emotions. As we've already seen before, she is seeking revenge on the leader of the Phantom Society, though she was in fact previously a member of this society. She in fact agrees with this group, this antagonistic organization that the party fights against, and its response to the bleak state of the world, imposing a total reset by using the Covenant to summon the Great One, only fighting alongside Ringo and the others for the sake of her personal vengeance. The leader of the Phantom Society was in fact Milady's partner, and Milady, possessing a Covenant herself, was originally planning to let Iron Mask kill her, in order for him to take it. The purpose that she saw for her own life was to die. This, along with her lack of will to live, shown in her soul hacking scene, clearly presents Milady as a character with serious mental problems. And this is in response to the world that she was born into and what it did to her. She had everything taken from her and desires retribution. She's hostile to others and rejects the opposite advice and companionship. In spite of this, she has a latent ability to connect with people in certain ways, with those that she sees a part of herself in, allowing her to be an amazing person with the ability to make great positive change in the right circumstances. Nevertheless, she's in constant conflict with Arrow, and the two of them have a great dynamic of disagreement over ideological differences and such. It's important that Soul Hackers 2 includes disagreement between the characters within the main cast, as a significant goal of this game is to hope for connection between people who disagree with each other. As said by Hirata in the same interview from before, with this perspective, even if 90% of our ideas are different, if we have something in common with the remaining 10%, we can create something together based on that. This is exactly what we are looking for in modern society. The excellent characters are also heightened by various aspects of gameplay. The personalities are expressed through the numerous and constant quotes that they throw out during battle. For example, Milady's desire for violence on the world is expressed through this line.
I'll burn it all!
When hovering over an enemy weakness, other party members often suggest that you use that element, and the different responses are particularly interesting.
Go for it, Arrow! Appreciate the advice.
Whereas for Milady,
Don't give me orders.
Milady rejects the advice of others, relevant to how closing herself off from other people is an important part of her character. Saizo's battle quotes are also fittingly humorous, for example, when you escape from a battle. Specific mechanics also improve the characters in the game, as well as heightening its themes. Since trying to understand others is such an important part of the game, it implements a soul level mechanic, whereby the player is given different dialogue choices for Ringo to say, each of them raising the soul level with one of the other three party members. Raising this allows Ringo to delve deeper into that person's soul, which is linked to the very important side content involving party building and lore about those characters in the Soul Matrix. Another way to raise soul level is with hangout events. Ringo is able to go for a drink at this beautiful and atmospheric futuristic bar with different combinations of the party, revealing different aspects of them as characters, further expanding the game's dedication to having the player come to understand these characters, and linking to the soul level aspect of gameplay. The character designs are also very expressive. Ringo's cybernetic origins are portrayed fantastically with the light-up technological triangle patterns on our coats. Saizo's showiness and expensive taste can be seen through his choice of clothing and the way he's unnecessarily decorated his comp. Arrow's somewhat modest personality is portrayed through his more muted design, which is also expressed through his more classic-looking comp, which mirrors that of the Soul Hackers 1 protagonist. Milady's less modest design, in contrast, also accentuates her character, and her knife-like comp represents her assassin aesthetic. It's also around this part of the game that we see, in retrospect, Iron Mask and Zenin gathering another covenant. The target is Ichiro Onda, who is mercilessly and brutally killed by Iron Mask's beast-like associate, who then devours the covenant like an animal. Ichiro Onda was the creator of the Omni system, a network which allowed for the instant transformation of information over long distances. This is an evolution of course, the internet, which the original Soul Hackers was about. A type of technology with extreme power. In the story section of the game's tips, it can be found that employees refer to it as the server from hell, not only as a joke, but also sometimes out of genuine belief. The connection of the internet and the demonic is an idea that has also been explored in other Megami Tensei games, such as Devil Survivor. The Omni system remains an interesting aspect of the plot and point of discussion for the game's story. In a side quest, an NPC close to Onda reveals this perspective on him.
He dreamed like a child. Technology is unstoppable, he would say. But he was frustrated at his current status quo. He said it had little to give to ideas that don't bring financial gain. To see the advancement of technology so stagnant was a major point of frustration for him. Still, Onda tackled the issues head-on, presenting unique ideas all the while.
This dialogue gives insight to Onda's supposed naivety surrounding technology, as well as the stagnating state of technological advancement. The 24th Ward Municipal Tower, where the Omni system resides, isn't the only technological and futuristic aspect of Tokyo in Soul Hackers 2. The game has a beautiful world filled with neon lights and various locations to visit. The world of Soul Hackers 2 is conveyed expertly with the area design, the music, and NPC dialogue. Shinsando is lined with neon blues and pinks that illuminate the night sky, a distraction from the crumbling state of society. It's easy to lose oneself in the endless lights of Soul Hackers 2's Tokyo. Shinsando also has different types of trees planted around this area of the city, standing in contrast to the technological wonder of the space they inhabit. The game contains areas called realms, hidden from the general public. Summoners are free to have their demons roam about and sell things related to the comps. The Mansei realm is blindingly bright, the same as the rest of the city, but perhaps even only more tech worshipping. On one of the buildings, PC/TV and robots are physically above all of the other things being sold. Perhaps another reference to the technocratic nature of the world. The music in this area is also fantastic. The theming of the area is conveyed through the dubstep aspect of the soundtrack. The music for the game's world in general is also very expressive, in a chill kind of way that conveys the atmosphere of each different location around town, such as in Tara's compsmith shop, or when walking down Karakacho. A personal favourite of mine is the safe house theme. The next goal of the party is to seek a man named Mangetsu Kuzunoa from the same clan as a different Devil Summoner protagonist, who possesses one of their remaining covenants. In all honesty, I do think the plot seems to rely on these MacGuffin-y covenants a bit too much at times. There are some hidden rules that dictate them lead to some pretty awesome reveals during the course of the story. Nevertheless, we're now at the third dungeon, the abandoned subway central line, where Mangetsu is supposedly in hiding. This dungeon is filled with a lot of threatening enemies on very hard difficulty, though the player always has the opportunity to counter them with the right demons and turn the tables. There are noteworthy uses of physical weaknesses in the enemies in this dungeon, and due to the way that stacks and summoner skills are balanced in this game, it makes a lot of sense. Standing in the way of Mangetsu's study is a familiar face, Kaburagi, Arrow's childhood friend, sworn to justice, but now on a wholly different path from Arrow.
I believe in the righteousness of the Phantom Society. I believe that the world Phantom will create is the world I always dreamed of, ever since I was a kid. Even if it means I gotta kill a down-and-out bum to make it happen. You want me to say it hurts? Sure, it hurts. None of us want to be out here killing innocents. I don't want to see a buddy get killed. And I sure as shit don't want to fight to the death with my best friend. You feel me? But, bigger the goal, the higher the price. Sometimes you just don't have a choice. I made up my mind a long time ago, so I'm prepared to do what I have to. Even if it means selling your soul.
Hang on a sec.
Right, people might call that brainwashing. You might think I'm some phantom fanatic. But if you're not believing in something to the fullest, are you even really living? Your values, your faith? Words just aren't enough to make a difference.
I have to agree with him, especially here. Too much blood has already been spilled.
So we have to fight. This is about who we are. You follow me?
Yeah. Avoiding conflict would be to deny the paths we've chosen. In my eyes, that's a fate worse than death.
This exchange speaks to the characters of Arrow and Kaburagi. What does it mean to truly believe in something? Is conflict necessary to change the world? These questions are at the heart of these characters. With the beautiful, unique battle intro animation for Arrow, the fight begins. This boss fight is especially noteworthy. It's the first truly significant challenge of a boss fight that the game faces the player with. Kaburagi's demons threaten the player with Aori Ruin skills, powerful physical and gun attacks, and an AoE Almighty attack that they need to be ready for at any moment, as well as the ability to cover Kaburagi's weakness. On very hard, this fight is one of those ordeals that requires a lot of thought being put into the player's party, as well as solid tactics in the moment, in order for them to overcome. The game is challenging before this, but Kaburagi is a real ball. It's at this point in the game that the player is forced to engage with the certain mechanic I haven't mentioned yet, commander skills. As an extra action each turn, the player can use a commander skill that recharges each few turns to alter the flow of battle. The basic two are conversion, allowing for a demon to be switched every turn, and stack optimization, which gives an extra stack for every attack. Using stack optimization is akin to having a sort of power turn, like using a Magatsuhi skill in SMT5. This needs to be placed well as not to waste it, but also in order to use it as much as possible without your turn count collecting dust. Being able to switch a demon every turn is, in fact, incredibly powerful, effectively giving each party member a huge list of skills for them to use, though the demons do have to be shared between the whole party, and each have a small list of skills, 4 to 6 depending on how much the slots have been upgraded. Nevertheless, this is still very powerful, but in Soul Hackers 2 Very Hard mode, this isn't overpowered, but rather necessary for surviving boss fights. They'll attack you with numerous different attributes of skills throughout a fight, and the varying weaknesses of each demon will force the player to constantly think about their party composition and switch demons. For this boss in particular, the game deliberately puts Jack-o'-lantern at Kaburagi's level, a demon with a powerful fire attack capable of hitting his healer's weakness. This is vital for speeding up the fight and giving the player the upper hand. Soul Hackers 2 is filled with deliberate game design decisions that encourage the player to engage with demon fusion and other mechanics. Defeating Kaburagi brings us to Mangetsu's supposed location, though he's nowhere to be found. In his place, a vast amount of information surrounding Arrow is found, as if Mangetsu is stalking him for reasons unknown. At this point, the party goes to Komodori Orphanage, meeting with Raven, a man Arrow knows from Yatagarasu, whose next lead identifies Subway Line 14 as our next dungeon. The orphanage is an isolated place of peace. On one particular visit here, the party has to keep the orphans company, and an orphan named Ichika, according to Arrow, is one who doesn't get along well with others. In spite of this, Milady, of all people, is able to connect with her when she reads the story to her. This is an event that is significant for Milady's character. Whilst the orphanage is a moment of respite for the party, Raven is a person who has experienced great trauma in his life. From a hangout event, we hear this about the summoner blood sport.
I can see it, hear it. The look on his face just before he was trampled to death. He screamed. But even more than that, I remember the crowd, howling away like animals. I remember what Raven told me back then too. Don't forget this emotion, he said. These people here did a long time ago.
Raven clinging to this emotion characterizes him as someone who cares deeply about the effect of the violent culture of summoners. Arrow's choice of language and howling away like animals portrays the devil summoner culture, the use of technology, and the desire to summon demons as bestial, as though the dark desires of humans are no different to that of wild animals. Therefore, this scene is significant to the story and to the characterization of both Raven and Arrow. I've yet to mention one of the most engaging and satisfying parts of Soul Hackers 2's gameplay, and that's the party building. Of course, you control 4 party members whose active skills in combat are primarily determined by their equipped demon, but the differing strengths and weaknesses of each party member makes them grow into entirely unique units, and the way that they evolve is steered by the player. One such way would be with Mystiques. These are equipable items with their own slot, tied to a specific magic type, granting boosted damage, unlockable skills, or the ability to crit with magic, for example. Mystiques require a certain rank for their given affinity type. The starting ranks, max ranks, and crafting materials required to upgrade rank are different for each party member. Therefore, at each given point in the game, different party members will have different sets of affinity ranks, making them distinguish and giving them different uses. Different party members will perform better with different magic types, though this relates not only to their primary one, but whichever affinities they have a good or bad rank in, and upgrading the rank is down to the player. Ringo wants to use a Lek, but you can upgrade her fire rank or unlock ice mystiques for her, and making choices like this is key to increasing coverage, which is central to Soul Hackers 2's combat. The player is given freedom to build the party however they want, and however they do will determine the way in which the party members are unique from each other. I briefly mentioned crafting materials a moment ago, and this is because upgrading a fancy rank happens at Tara's Compsmith, where another key part of party building happens: comp upgrades. Using materials salvaged from different races of demons, each party member has a unique list of comp upgrades, ranging from upgrading the damage of their preferred physical type to effects such as restoring MP of one basic attack use. The latter is an effect that Milady can gain, and this is a great choice for her, as it helps her to excel at her role as a high MP cost offensive mage. Comp upgrades are a great way to give the player choices of how to craft their own party. Do you want to increase Arrow's comp attack or his gun crit damage? Who do you want to unlock an extra Mystique slot on? How will you allocate your resources? These are the choices that Soul Hackers 2 faces the player with. An interesting quirk of comp upgrades is that the final version of any upgrade you pick must be the only final upgrade for that comp. Whilst this is a restriction, it ends up feeling more like a freedom, and instead of letting the player take every upgrade, the game forces them to pick one, making the decision more personal. These choices allow for a deep and highly customizable party building system. Finally, party members are built with summon skills. The player must choose between several of these each time they open a gate in the Soul Matrix. As well as giving a different feel to each party member, this can result in the player making some interesting trade-offs. Do I want to get Milady's next stack skill as soon as possible, or do I want a chance to instantly kill a low HP enemy? These passives working alongside the active skills from demons are such a fun way to blend devil summoning with human party members. Mangetsu's true location is in Subway Line 14, an area that introduces new dungeon mechanics and contains several mini-bosses. A member of the Phantom Society lies in wait, preparing to prevent Ringo's advance towards Mangetsu's whereabouts. This is Ash, Saizo's former partner, and the person who got him killed by Iron Mask. She's in disbelief that he's still alive, though she still fights for Phantom. Ash is a character who acts to hide her guilt, and out of a belief that she can't change the outcome of the conflict for the Covenant. Seeing Saizo killed, she believes that there's nothing she can do to act against Phantom, and so she fights against Ringo and the others, who would try to stop them. Though the mini-boss fight against Ash is all a ruse. After she's worn down, she reveals that she was merely acting to waste Ringo's time before Ringo can save Mangetsu. Ash retreats, leaving her, Saizo, and everyone else alive. Deep down, she doesn't want violence. This dungeon involves demon magic, causing a one-way door mechanic. It requires logical thinking skills in order for the player to plan their route around the subway, succeeding pretty well as a mechanic. When Mangetsu's location is finally reached, we meet not the man himself, but Iron Mask and Zenin. By this point, Mangetsu has already been killed, though his body is nowhere to be found. It was devoured by Zenin. Zenin is a Zoma, an artificial demon created by Iron Mask, powered by the Covenant to destroy his enemies. He is the embodiment of chaos, born from technology and desire for power. He acts like a savage beast, growling instead of speaking, consuming his enemies. In this scene, Milady loses control, desperately trying to wreak vengeance upon Iron Mask. This is the first confrontation with Zenin and Iron Mask, seemingly a difficult boss fight at first, though it becomes quickly apparent that it's not winnable in the first place. The power of Zenin and the Covenant is too much for the party, and as such, they have to retreat, as well as gain info on the Zoma in order to learn how to defeat him. Ringo asks Victor, the man who runs the Cirque du Gomaden, the place where demons are fused, for help. And as it turns out, this demon fusion NPC has more relevance to the story than one might initially expect. Victor is a recurring character in the Devil Summoner series. In this entry, he has knowledge regarding the Zoma, the artificially created demon, as he was in fact the one that helped Iron Mask create it. He is, after all, the one who let Ringo create new demons via fusion.
Long ago, God created humans from the earth. In that sense, you could argue that God is the father of humanity. Children grow by observing their parents, or I should say, they imitate them. Anything the parent can do, the child can too, you see.
You mean the humans tried to copy an act of God? What did they do?
Create a soul. In their hubris, humanity attempted to play the role of God and create a soul from nothing.
Artificially creating demons is this hubris. It is the desire for power granted through technology. This is a Soul Hackers game. This is the exploration of the effect of technology using the concept of demons. In Victor's dialogue, humans are described as children, playing with a power they don't understand. This is also the same language Makiko uses to describe Onda. Soul Hackers 2 portrays technology with the example of the desire for power over life and death. Technology is presented through the idea of wanting to create a soul from nothing. The name of Victor is a reference to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It is the name of the scientist who creates life to copy an act of God, resulting in death and destruction. Soul Hackers 2's discussion of technology is especially relevant in the modern age as we witness rapid technological advancement, especially that of generative AI. It is possible that one day humanity will advance AI so far that it genuinely will become as sentient as humans. The reality of the world that we live in and the direction that it's going in may be no different than the creation of the Zoma. This is the social criticism of Soul Hackers, responding to events happening in the world in real time. In order to destroy the Zoma, Ringo and the party take Victor's advice to strike at a new moon when the power of demons wanes. This is the 5th main dungeon of the game. Intent on stopping Ringo from acting against the Phantom Society's plan, Ash returns and confronts the party multiple times during this dungeon. Ash is a character who feels overwhelming responsibility for the death of Saizo, since she led him to the area where Iron Mask killed him, and this persists even after he's been brought back to life by Ringo's soul hack. This feeling is unbearable for Ash and gives her much sorrow leading her to cover it up by trying to believe that there's nothing she can do regarding Iron Mask's plans. Believing Phantom would only get her killed like Saizo, instead of trying to fight against her fate, she complies with it. It's during this dungeon that Saizo and the party chase Ash to attempt to try and convince her that she can do something to change the situation. The second battle against Ash has her deploying new tactics, having Pazuzu cast a miasma that causes damage at the end of the player's turn. This puts a lot of pressure on the player and makes the fight more tense and challenging. Chasing her to the top of Ozaki Hope Towers will eventually result in the party giving Ash the opportunity to atone, to leave Phantom and start fighting against it, even if it puts her at risk. Ash finally decides to not give up, thus the party is ready for the final battle against Zenon. When they meet Iron Mask in the lab, he successfully traps the party and gains the upper hand, allowing him to bargain for Figue's covenant. If Iron Mask leaves everyone else alive, Figue will offer her life to give Iron Mask the covenant, and so she does. Though the Covenant was infected by a virus, and Figue's body was a fake, she remotely controlled a different synthetic body. At this point, Ash returns and shoots Iron Mask, stunning him, and in this act of defiance, her character arc is complete. This scene is significant for Ash, and for Figue. Figue's tendency to metaphorically wear a mask is represented by her deception in this scene. Such a risky move to save Ringo shows her care for her. Despite not knowing Ringo particularly well, the familial bond between them is enough for Figue to act in great care for her. As such, it's finally possible for the party to gain a foothold towards killing Zenon. This is the Zoma, a demonic manifestation crafted by the hand of man. This is the desire for power. This is hubris. This is technology. This is artificial intelligence. And this is one of the hardest bosses in Megami Tensei. Zenon is by far the single most threatening enemy in Soul Hackers 2, and the battle against him and his summoner, as well as his other demons, defeating him first is effectively mandatory on very hard mode. If the player hits Iron Mask with anything other than a Sabbath, including AoE skills, while Zenon is alive, Zenon will counterattack with Vengeful Loyalty, which inflicts seal and shuts down a party member. Dealing with this counterattack is not realistically viable and very hard. As such, the player's options become severely limited. Relying on AoE skills prior to this fight is likely due to the higher damage they do to the enemy group overall, so it is probable that many of the skills the player has on their demons will become unviable for fighting Zenon. This is a problem for the player, especially due to the fact that they will need as many different offensive skills as they can get to have each party member hit his shifting weakness. Zenon has 5 elemental modes. 4 of these have him repel the chosen element, make him weak to its opposite, and resist all else. Consistently hitting his weakness several times is hard enough due to the fact that it shifts every few turns, and AoE skills are effectively out due to Vengeful Loyalty. But it gets worse. Iron Mask summons 3 other demons during combat. If Zenon is the extreme DPS, then the other demons are the tank, the healer, and the ailment user to support him. Power is the tank. It will be summoned at the beginning of battle, casting a skill that guards Zenon's weakness until power is killed. On top of dealing with this, in each of Zenon's cycles, he will unleash a devastating elemental AoE attack before switching to the next mode. This is dangerous for anyone who doesn't know the affinity, requiring constant healing upkeep. Anyone weak to the current affinity is effectively dead when he casts it, which is especially an issue given that you'll probably want to run a demon of the opposing affinity to hit his weakness. As a result, the demons of each party member need to be constantly switched to keep up with his elemental shifting. But at the same time, they need to be using the correct demons to fight Iron Mask's other demons, as well as heal and apply buffs. You simply do not have enough actions to keep up with everything that happens in battle. So how do you deal with this? Is the boss fight impossible? The secret to beating Zenon on very hard mode is that there is no secret. Learn his attack patterns, counter Iron Mask's demons, use commander skill to their fullest. You don't need to spend hours in the Cirque du Gomaden crafting the perfect party, just figure out which demons to use and how to use them. Make every action count, make no mistakes, capitalize on every opportunity, and you can win. The opener that I developed for this boss had hard focus on taking down power, apply the maximum offensive buffs as early as possible, as well as some defense, play around with Sabbath skills to conserve actions. Zenin's weakness is easy to hit for exactly one turn at the start of battle, making it seem like a good opportunity for damage, but it's best to buff up and plan for the long term, and prepare for the arrival of power. Power is weak to gun. Arrow is the best gun user, due to being a physical focused unit and having gun stack like Saizo. Hellbiker can act as a great gun user, and using charge on him on the first turn can allow for putting everything into the turn where I go on the offensive against power. Charge is buffed in Soul Hackers 2 with the clever balancing decision of making it add an extra stack to the next attack, meaning that it can keep up with the Sabbath system. That's how I expose Zenin's weakness, but that truly is the least of it. I'm not going to explain my entire strategy, I wouldn't be able to remember every detail anyways, but this is an example of how the Zenin boss fight encourages deep strategizing. Zenin also uses the skill Greedy Claws. This is a single target skill, able to deal well over 1,000 damage, no doubt exceeding the player's max HP, and killing them even if they resist it, healing Zenin, and if they somehow survive, also fully debuffing the party member. This is in fact the only example of something in the fight that has a simple solution. Using Tetracon when the skill is forecasted will counter it entirely. He has other tricks up his sleeve too, such as his Ruin mode. At some points, he will return to the same state he begins the battle in, weak to everything. However, he will devour demons that join the stack, forcing the party to suddenly stop their offensive, as well as characterizing him. The battle also has great atmosphere due to the dialogue and the boss theme. Iron Mask's battle quote where he yells, works very effectively for his character. His desire for forbidden power demonstrated by his use of Zenin and Seeking of the Covenants is portrayed well here, heightened by Edward Bosco's English voice acting performance. To deal with the issue of constantly having to keep up with Zenin switching and the different demons, you can make use of a previously seemingly unnecessary commander skill, Master Conversion. This skill allows a player to switch out the demons for the entire party, usable every few turns. Whilst often not necessary in normal battles, effective use of this skill can save you against Zenin. Commander skills in Soul Hackers 2 recharge independently, so for example, casting Master Conversion does not limit your ability to use stack optimization on the next turn, meaning that the player has numerous opportunities to use them against Zenin. I use the Commander skill on most turns, resulting in a tactically complex experience. This is one of the best boss fights in the entire series. Your victory is yours, a win is earned. Zenin is dead, but Iron Mask escapes. Figue is alive, and whilst Iron Mask has most of the Covenants, the party is one step closer to bringing him down. Ash has been developed as a character, whilst both her and Saizo have been set up for future. In the optional Soul Matrix dungeons, the memories of each party member can be found, though the final scene in each one differs from the others.
Back from recon, huh? Let's see. Yikes. Guess we don't have time to hang around. It's that haunted apartment again, Ash! We gotta go!
It's a vision of the future.
Right now? Then who's picking up the kid?
The kid? The kid! It can't be that late already! How'd it get so late?
You get the kid, I'll take the apartment. I can handle this demon easy.
Thanks, you're a lifesaver.
Oh, and stop by Mancha on your way back. We need milk, eggs, detergent. Oh, and make sure the milk's...
2%, I know, I got it. Knock him dead, honey. And be careful.
You too, darling.
Okay, let's rock and roll!
The silence at the start of this scene builds a sense of mystery. The tapping of Saizo's foot creates a sense of expectation. When dialogue finally appears, the game, piece by piece, quickly unravels the truth of the situation. Ash and Saizo will get back together, and they'll have a child. Saizo's mouth slowly curling into a smile, only for the camera to cut to Ringo, similarly beaming at him. The moment of realization is a beautiful and hopeful moment. Saizo's greatest wish is fulfilled, a new life is created. The way in which this scene is paced makes it an impactful, genuinely wholesome moment. Saizo, Ash, and Ringo are all excellent characters. The key to the Last Covenant lies with Arrow. The message left by Mangetsu hints at how to find it. There is an unresolved conflict within his soul matrix. Arrow and the party discover that Arrow was once a student of Mangetsu. When running from Phantom, Mangetsu performed 3 rituals: the duplicating, transferring, and sealing of a covenant. Mangetsu made a fake duplicate covenant within himself, tricked the real one into thinking his arm was himself and transferred it there, cut off the arm to allow Arrow to take it, and sealed it within Arrow, making it hidden and erasing Arrow's memories. The way that the game plays with covenant rules like this makes for some interesting twists. Milady later reveals that Iron Mask is dead, and that he had been replaced. When the party returns to Komodori, the unsealing of Arrow's covenant, allowing him to see other covenant holders, causes a silent realization.
Raven's the man in the Iron Mask!
Milady, as ever seeking revenge on the one who killed her lover, now knows his true identity. The stakes are set for a painfully tense confrontation. The following is the best scene in Soul Hackers 2. In her desperation, Milady is willing to attack Komodori to get her vengeance. By the time the rest of the party arrives, Saizo is the only one standing between her and the orphanage. Milady would kill Raven, even taking orphans as hostages for the sake of revenge.
Out of my way, Saizo. I don't want to fight you.
I don't want to fight you either, damn it! But I'm not gonna let you do this!
Milady!
Do the rest of you even care about stopping the apocalypse? Our enemy can't go all out here either. We need every advantage we can get. We're even surrounded by potential hostages we can use against him.
Don't, Milady. They've got nothing to do with this!
Maybe they don't. The kids are innocent. But that's never meant a damn thing to the world. Why should it matter to me?
What are these images? Is it a reaction to Milady's intense emotions?
I lost my family. I lost the man I love. None of you, no one can hold this against me. If the world's going to take everything from me, then I can goddamn well take it back.
You're wrong. Being hurt doesn't mean you deserve to hurt other people. You're perpetuating a cycle, making the world more painful to live in.
The world can go fuck itself! It was going to end anyway! Who gives a shit if this great one burns it all down?
Milady? Are you crying?
Ichiro...
I could read a story to you next time. Would that make you feel better?
This is an unjust world. A false world. Let's destroy it together.
I'm sorry. I'm not strong enough after all.
But you are.
Deep-seated within Milady is a hatred for the world. Despite claiming to act to prevent the apocalypse, Milady eventually reveals her true feelings, that the world can go fuck itself. She rejects this reality. This is potentially not only in the sense that she despises it, but perhaps also that this existence is fake, as she is heavily influenced by the statement that she heard from Iron Mask as a child. This is an unjust world, a false world. Let's destroy it together, hinting at her losing touch with reality. Preventing the end of the world is an extremely common plot in fantasy stories, but the origin of the thematic role of the world's end is much clearer in pieces of media in which the world-ending characters are sympathetic and display intense emotion. In this instance, it is very literal, with Milady and several other characters expressing an entirely human and relatable desire to end life as a response to suffering. Indeed, this is a betrayal of what it means to be suicidal. This scene accentuates Milady's role in the narrative as a foil to Arrow when compared to dialogue from him and Kaburagi. Both of those two characters similarly experienced great suffering in childhood, Kaburagi referring to what a messed up world this is, and Arrow stating, in response to the idea that the world is a beautiful place, "I don't know why, it seems awful to me." Though, their response to suffering is opposite. Kaburagi states, "This is the only world we've got. No point wasting all our time moping about it or turning into jerks. Instead of exacting vengeance upon the world, they fight to make it a better place, whilst Milady, as Ringo states, is making the world more painful to live in." Milady's desire to burn it all down, being derived from her own experience of sorrow, slips into her dialogue when she says, "That's never meant a damn thing to the world." She feels robbed by the world, highlighted by her statement that no one can hold this against her, that if the world's going to take everything from her, then she can goddamn well take it back. Therefore, vengeance is something that she feels is owed to her, enabling her acts of attempted violence against innocent people. Yet the scene ends with a hopeful resolution, brought about by Ichika, betraying the power of connection. Our offer to read a story to Milady next time is a reversal of the prior scene in which Milady reaches out to Ichika due to the connection that Milady made between their souls, as a result of seeing herself within Ichika, allowing Ichika to pull her back from the brink. All of this is further heightened by the clearly heartful voice acting from Milady's English voice actress, Erica Lindbeck. This scene was crafted with the wish from all participants to create something special, epitomizing the game as a whole. The scene powerfully portrays despair, vengeance, violence, and the desire to die, but simultaneously it is a beautiful celebration of connection. For this reason, this is one of the most emotional scenes in any video game, solidifying Soul Hackers 2 as having some of the best characters and one of the best stories in any game I've ever played. The sixth section of this video is complete, moving discussion towards the endgame of Soul Hackers 2. Raven lies in wait in the West Shipping District for his final confrontation, though at this point the main story dungeon crawling must be discussed. This is an aspect of Soul Hackers 2 that has been oft criticized, despite being much faster and less tedious than other games. Enemies are engaged with via overworld encounters. Random encounters, despite often being denounced as outdated, can be used effectively to create a sense of inevitable looming hostility, such as in Hashino's masterpiece, SMT Nocturne, though there are some games with worse dungeon crawling that use it. Digital Devil Saga, whilst an incredible game in its own right, includes some tedium, such as in its final dungeon, using progress removing teleporters and requiring a lot of trial and error, and constant easy random encounters to interrupt this certainly don't help. Soul Hackers 2's system doesn't have such issues, and in terms of games with overworld encounters, feels more involved than, say, SMT5, as good of a game as that one is. Instead of slashing at enemies to have better odds at gaining the first turn, as long as the enemy demon's eyes are green. Slashing enemies in the field will knock them down, locking them into a vulnerable position, with the exception of risky enemies which can't be knocked down and have to be slammed into a wall to allow you to close the distance while the eyes are still green. Gaining initiative is mainly a system of guarantees based solely on skill, the exception to the guarantees being ambushes, as well as hitting an enemy from behind. You also need to get lucky to get an ambush. Though this is well designed because it allows Milady's Missed Surprise comp upgrade, which raises ambush chances, to take effect, adding to the party building. Striking from behind is also more viable than in some other games, because the enemy movement and dungeon layouts allow for it. Soul Hackers 2 dungeons are open and visually clear. An update added, as well as the option to speed up combat animations, the ability for Ringo to run, and no time is wasted as she speeds through the dungeons. Navigating through them requires spatial awareness and logic. They're not puzzle heavy, but that's fine. There is one main issue with the dungeons, and that's aesthetics. The visual design for the dungeons are reused multiple times, and the Soul Matrix side dungeons are all aesthetically the same. The game only has 4 dungeon themes, 3 of which my opinion of is similar to that of the normal battle theme. They're inoffensive and I chew them out. This is one way in which the dungeon crawling could have been better, though with the combat being as good as it is on V hard mode, the experience is still fantastic overall. Progressing through the West Shipping District, we'll have the party come face to face with Raven for the final time. In the final fight with the game's main antagonist, Raven, False Iron Mask, uses the same demons he did in the Zenin battle, but without his Zoma, this fight is far easier, and that makes sense. Raven doesn't want to kill you, and even if he did, he wouldn't be able to without Zenin. Nevertheless, he does whip out some unique skills to catch you by surprise, though he remains an easy win. Raven puts on the mask at the start of the battle, possibly in an attempt to detach his humanity from the conflict, though he removes it partway through, revealing his true self. This point of the story makes it clear that the game deliberately shows the sympathetic side of its antagonists. There are no villains in Soul Hackers 2. The game isn't interested in presenting a conflict between good and evil, confirmed by Ishida's statement that he felt as though, in the past, unlike this game, many stories were structured in a way to expose the evil side of human beings once you uncover who they are underneath. Raven contrasts this idea, seeming like an evil destroyer of worlds at first glance, but merely being a deeply troubled and caring man once his mask is removed. Not long before this part of the story, Milady was willing to go to extreme lengths to kill a Raven, but in this fight, her battle intro doesn't play, and this is clearly not a moment of vengeance for Milady. Finally, in spite of all their conflict, Arrow and Milady reflect together. They may disagree on so much, but the 10% that they have in common is enough to connect them. And yet, this entire time, Ringo has neglected to connect with Figue. Figue has hidden behind a technological mask, the drone Mimi, for much of the course of the story, and despite effectively being her sister, Ringo hasn't gained a mutual understanding with her. She hasn't reached out to her soul. Figue already had Arrow's covenant transferred to her via soul hacking. She tried to soul hack Raven herself, and within his soul, she witnessed his despair. In the end, there was nothing she could do to save him. With Raven's death, she herself falls into despair, and takes all of the remaining covenants. Her aim is to finish what Raven started. This is the final act of Soul Hackers 2, a thematic culmination of the game as a whole. The despair of Raven, and now of Figue, manifests itself in a desire to alter the world in such a way that it ends the capacity for human conflict. A lack of understanding between Ringo and Figue fosters this hopelessness, and Figue aims to use a technological method to attain her goals. When Ringo finally finds Figue after she disappears, they meet in a tense scene in which neither of them dares acknowledge the bleakness of the situation. The safe house theme plays as normal, as though Ringo and Figue are pretending nothing is wrong. After she leaves again, she takes control of Aion and makes for the 24th Ward Municipal Tower, Ichiro Onda's base of the Omni system. Reaching Figue before she can use the Covenants is the purpose with which the party journeys through the final dungeon. The effect of Figue's use of the Covenants has warped the space in the Municipal Tower, turning it into a seascape. This is one of the most questionable and seemingly random dungeon aesthetics I've seen in a Mega 10 game. Something like a ruined technological hellscape would make more sense as a final area for Soul Hackers 2, but this is what we got. The idea behind it is that reality is warping up something, but why we're under the sea is beyond me. Nevertheless, the dungeon is great for testing the player's summoner skills and comp upgrades that they should be maxing out by this point. Examples such as Milady assassinating low HP enemies, or Ringo using Warrior's Insight to fish for crits, are great additions to the player's tactical arsenal that becomes more apparent in this area. There's a surprisingly difficult mini-boss fight against a couple of summoners with their Decarabia, alternating between Tetrakarn and Makarakarn to force the player to either alternate their skills or find a way around it. Getting the player to play in a different way like this adds variation to the combat. There's also a boss fight against Azazel, a shifting resistance boss, and like most bosses in this game, on very hard difficulty, the mechanics he makes use of force the player to adapt and form a solid strategy in order to win. The latter part of this dungeon changes vastly. The old dungeon aesthetic is gone, placed by a giant, dark carcass in the distance of this space, where what look like fetuses are visible. This area appears to be themed around birth and death, perhaps signifying the immense power that the Covenants hold over life itself. The choral music also fits the grand funeral-like vibe, though the vibe doesn't necessarily fit the game entirely. This is certainly better than the first part of the dungeon, but still not ideal. A summoner from Yatagarasu is encountered at this point, aiming to deal with Figue, and fighting for the right to do so. When defeated, he asks Ringo what she would do in the event that she's unable to convince Figue to stop.
Ringo, emissary of Aion. What happens if you can't convince Figue? Are you gonna keep talking to her? Would you risk the entire world to save one friend?
Of course. I'll never give up on her, no matter what.
You realize that's...
Yeah, it's irrational. Unreasonable, I know. But we're doing this my way. And since I beat you, you don't get to decide.
Well, at least you're self-aware. If we could divide the world into good choices and evil choices, this would have been over a long time ago.
This last line from Hazumi, whilst somewhat cliché, speaks to the soul of the game. There are no evil people in Soul Hackers 2. Hazumi understands this decision. Ringo wants to understand Figue. With the path to Figue almost clear, Aion, in accordance with Figue's will, offers Ringo and the player a question about 4 different individuals: Mangetsu, Onda, Paul, the original Iron Mask, and Raven. The question is whether the player agrees with the actions of each of them. The game uses this fantastic opportunity to have the player reflect on these characters and what they represent. Aion's question also puts particular emphasis on how they each responded to the knowledge of death. The choice that the player makes doesn't impact the game much, but it encourages the player to think. Aion has its own views on these people. For each time the player disagrees with one of them, Aion will later put up resistance by deploying a dominion that Ringo has to fight. Therefore, Aion agrees with all 4, 2 who accepted death and 2 who did not. 4 different men, some with opposing views to others. Aion acts for the evolution of humanity, though at this point in the story it agrees with Figue's aims that are not too dissimilar from Raven's. It is strange for Aion to agree with all 4, though Aion's opinion may not be the point. This section simply presents the player with these characters and offers them a chance to consider their own opinions on them. Mangetsu Kuzunoha. His soul was marked by sacrifice. When he faced death, he accepted it, putting his faith in those who would follow in his footsteps. Mangetsu is a character who worked tirelessly and sacrificed himself to defend his covenant and preserve the world. He accepted death. Ichiro Onda. His soul was marked by a ravenous ambition. When he faced death, he welcomed it, knowing that not even oblivion could shake his burning pride. Onda created the Omni System and advanced technology significantly. Onda can take responsibility for both the benefits and the damage caused by technological advancement. Describing him as ravenous semantically connects him to Zenon's aesthetic portrayal, further paralleling him with Iron Mask. His burning pride paints a Luciferian image of him. His acceptance of death is admirable, portraying him as a strong person. Paul Taylor. His soul was marked by compassion. When he faced death, he gave in, knowing that life itself was all but meaningless. Iron Mask had goals seen as sinister by some, though they came from a desire to end suffering. Unfortunately for him, he feared death. Raven. His soul was marked by conflict. When he faced death, he resigned himself to it, overcome by his own powerlessness. Whilst he only sought to help people, his aims were of destruction. He is a character of despair, finding only sorrow in death. Finally, Figue awaits, and whether Ringo will be able to convince her will be decided. Figue's plan is to use the Omni System to soul hack the entire world and remove the capacity for human conflict. With Ringo lacking understanding with her, her response to Raven's death left her in so much despair, witnessing the conflict of people in the world and their lack of understanding of each other, that she would use technology to strip people of who they are in order to end suffering. This is the final result of the strained relationship between Ringo and Figue, the final result of her despair. She has no intention of wavering. Cyber Aion is a 3-phase boss fight that tests the player's abilities in every way. She opens the battle with a single static elemental weakness, forcing the player to attack in one specific way. She engages with the buff system, and whilst the first phase is merely a prelude, it's important to optimize effectively in preparation for what's to come. In a second phase, she uses the Covenant to create elemental clones that each have different roles. The most troublesome of these, the Ruin clone, which uses Makarakan every turn to cover the elemental weaknesses of all the others. This encourages the player to use physical and gun skills when this phase first starts, which is a unique challenge. The other clones have other roles, such as being a healer, and the player must effectively find the solution to counter each one. Figue also swaps the weaknesses of the clones late into the phase, forcing a switch in strategy. In her final phase, even though she has been transformed beyond recognition, each party member gives their regards to Figue, thanking her for their time together. She starts with no weakness, and her weakness later isn't made clear. This is one of the more challenging iterations of a shifting weakness boss. She summons an ally to aid her and unleashes her powerful AoE Almighty attacks. The boss battle certainly isn't Zen, though nonetheless is challenging. Soul Hackers 2 has 2 endings. By default, after Figue is defeated, she will die, though this can be changed by delving into the soul matrix. If the soul matrices of all 3 party members are completed, Ringo is able to succeed at soul hacking Figue and bringing her back to life. Via the connection of their souls, it is possible to preserve life. Figue lives and is discouraged from soul hacking the world. All people continue to live, to fight with each other, and to try to understand each other. Each one a life worth living. Hazumi, Paul, Kaburagi, Ash, Raven, Milady, Onda, Figue. There is so much conflict, and yet there are no villains. Real life isn't a battle between good and evil. The world is a place where billions of people, all flawed, or with positive aspects about themselves, try to figure each other out. Figue, seeing the differences between people and the suffering this caused, became hopeless, not believing that people could work together. But I would like to remind you of something that I referenced earlier in the video. The Hirata, co-director of the game, said, Even if 90% of our ideas are different, if we have something in common with the remaining 10%, we can create something together based on that. This is exactly what we are looking for in modern society. In spite of all of our differences, in spite of all of the conflict and suffering in the world, people can connect with one another by what they have in common. This is mutual understanding, portrayed by Soul Hackers 2 as something that can cure despair. In our modern, technologically advanced world, we can still reach out to each other's souls. Thank you very much for giving this video a chance. Soul Hackers 2 is a game that I hold dear. I consider it to be one of the best games I've ever played. I wanted to make this video because of how much I was able to connect with the game in a world where we're experiencing rapid technological advancement and seeing the damage it causes. Soul Hackers 2 felt like a reminder that it's okay, that you can make it, that if you find the right person to reach out to your soul, you can find the will to live again. The game has received a lot of negativity, and in spite of that, I thought it looked cool. Pushed past that and gave it a chance, and managed to really connect with it. It isn't perfect, no art is. Some of the music is just okay and the dungeon aesthetics are reused half the time, but people often parrot the consensus of the internet instead of thinking for themselves. And if you do this, your opinions won't be your own and you'll struggle to meaningfully connect with art. That's why it's so important to go against the crowd and form your own opinions. That's why I make video essays, to share my own takes, and to express my love for beautiful pieces of art. Thank you to my friends for voice acting, who I have linked in the description, as with the developer interview and the footage I used. This video took way too long to make. As I write this script, I've been having motivation issues, despite knowing what I wanted to say. I don't know if I want to continue making video essays. There probably won't be anyone who cares about this video enough to watch until this point. Who knows, maybe this will be my last one, or maybe I'll keep going in spite of it all. But for now, stay safe, try to understand other people, and get your opinions out there.